Hi everyone. Look, delighted to bring on today's guest. I'm returning to New Zealand for a change. If you're following this podcast, you know I've been interviewing a lot of people from Australia, the United States, the UK. So I am delighted to not only be bringing a New Zealander back, but someone I have an immense amount of time and respect for. And look, with no further ado, the wonderful and lovely, if I might, Tanya Unkovich, the MP there in Parliament. How are you?
Oh, good morning. I'm pretty well, thank you. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing very well. We're going to be touching particularly around palliative care and hospices, and why, for listeners, I've got Tanya on, as she has been a strong voice in the space and actually has a bill dealing with palliative care. And it's why, Tanya, I wanted to have you on to talk us through the bill, what you're hearing and seeing, particularly in that palliative care space. And I was remiss to not say at the start, you're with New Zealand First. You're there in the coalition government, and this is your first term. So I'm going to throw you that curveball. How are you finding things a year or so in?
Well, it's funny you should ask after a midnight finish and 4 hours sleep, because it's one of those days where you go, gosh, I need some toothpicks for my eyes today. It's a vocation. That's the way I would describe it. You know, you have to really want to be here to serve. And on those days, long ones like what we had yesterday, you have to keep reminding yourself, I'm here to serve the people, I'm here to serve the people, and you just get up and go for it. As you know, Simon.
I do. You might actually just want to highlight for people. So when things are in urgency, obviously the government of the day is pushing things through at speed, but give people a bit of a sense of the hours that you keep.
Well, I'm an early bird, so I'm in the office at 7 a.m. and yesterday morning select committee was at 8, so that all gets pushed to the other ends of the day and the gaps. So 8 a.m. was select committee, and then we go straight into the House, 9 a.m. And it's 9 a.m. till midnight with an hour off at lunch if you're lucky enough to get a break and not have a select committee. And then it's question time 2 till 3. And then it's just House duty. So we rotate our House duty, but it's about being open and awake until midnight on a day that you're in urgency. So it is hard on the body, I'm not going to lie. And sometimes you feel your age, but like I say, you've got to have a heart for service, and that's what gets you through those long days.
I'm proud to say in my years, I fortunately never fell asleep in the House. I recall a couple of colleagues who did, and I feel sorry for them, as you're saying, and people have to get it in their minds. I mean, these are long days, 9 a.m. through till midnight, and then rinse and repeat. And as you say, the normal other activities like your select committees, dealing with your constituents, emails, all of that has to be squeezed in around it. It's crazy and it's wonderful, but as you say, it's quite the vocation.
It is indeed. You've really got to take care of your physical and emotional health in this job. Really take care of yourself, because that will help you get through those long days.
Well, it's a bit of a bad pun, but the family does come first, and it was one of the things I found, is making sure to keep those connections. Look, one of you're doing many things there in Parliament. I follow not all, but a lot of MPs in their work. And look, firstly, thank you for the advocacy and voice you're bringing. And one area, Tanya, is particularly in palliative care, quite close to my heart for various reasons. But you have a bill in the ballot, so tell us about that.
Yes, well, it is one of your bills, actually, and thank you for allowing me
What?
to pick that
Stolen!
up.
Stolen! No, only kidding. No.
Borrowed, transitioned. It's improving access to palliative care. So it is about ensuring that palliative care is not forgotten. And for me, it's about bringing attention to the urgency that's required in our palliative care space and what hospices have to do in order to keep their doors open. I often like to speak about the volunteers in the palliative care space who give their time to hospice. There's 10 to 11,000 nationally. Now, what would happen to our palliative care space if they all one day said, we're not doing this anymore? Imagine what would happen. So we need to acknowledge them, but also let everyone know in New Zealand, most people don't realise the dire straits that the hospices are in at the moment. So I really want to do everything I can to bring attention to this area and hopefully make a change with this members bill.
Oh, I think it's great. Look, I'm biased. You've outed me as such. It's actually this bill, and you would have added more to it. Every MP who picks it up adds their own perspectives. And I'm just thrilled you have. It actually started with Maggie Barry.
Yes.
She had it drafted after the euthanasia debate. And then I think Todd Muller had it briefly. Then myself, obviously I lost, and then I was delighted when you made contact, and as a courtesy, really, because you don't need my permission, but you'd picked it up, and I just love the fact that you've enhanced it and run further with it. So, I mean, just give people a bit of a sense. You said, that the dire straits, I think, of hospice and palliative care in New Zealand. It's not government funded, really, is it?
Well, it is to a certain percentage, but in my personal opinion, not enough. The hospices have to go out there and fundraise, and they do that with charity work, going out there and actually physically doing the fundraising, having events through their hospice shops. With the cost of living at the moment, people aren't spending as much in the hospice shops, so they're not getting as much funding there. So that is something that, look, I didn't know about it. I'm going to be really honest. When I first became a parliamentarian, I wanted to go to Mercy Hospice. That was the very first one I went to. And that was where it was brought to my attention on the situation that is out there. So if me as a new parliamentarian wasn't aware of the detail of the struggling that they're having, then most New Zealanders don't. So that's why I'm making such an effort to bring it to everyone's attention.
It was one of the things that I'd come across too. Again, unfortunately, it was in that euthanasia space, but that was obviously being promoted, but it was also being very well funded. In fact,
Mm.
and this is possibly a political point for me, so do push back because you're there at the coalface now. But basically, euthanasia services are fully funded by the taxpayer. But as you pointed out, hospices do get some government funding, but not nearly enough. And there's no strategy. There's no comprehensive strategy across the country, is there?
No, no. And that is one of the things that this bill will do. It will actually ensure that there are obligations placed on the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health, Health New Zealand, beg your pardon, Health New Zealand and the Minister of Health, that a strategy is in place, that it is documented in detail as well to ensure that it is fair and equitable for all in New Zealand, no matter what your age, where you live, the rural areas. But also it means that they are going to have to report. They're going to have to be accountable for how they are delivering on that strategy. So it does provide detail and specifics that are required, which I believe needs to happen, or else it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, isn't it? And you just see what sticks. There's no room for that anymore.
Oh, it's just so needed. And it probably is a bit of a surprise to some people watching and listening that actually there isn't any strategy there at the moment. There isn't any accountability, particularly when, and you'll know about this, in fact, I'd like to get your perspective, is the hospices run amazingly well.
Mm.
And in some ways, I think people probably forget that there isn't, as you say, that strategy. And I'll say it too, ministers hate accountability. It doesn't matter who's in or who's not, but I think it's a really good element of what you're introducing there so that we can actually get this important service. I mean, what has ultimately drawn you towards this topic? Why are you passionate? You mentioned right at the start of being an MP, you headed to Mercy Hospice. There must be some catalysts in play.
Well, grief is something that is very dear to my heart, and I don't mind talking about the topic of grief. In my mid-30s, having to face grief myself, immense grief, I decided to go and study to be a therapist. And I think I did that personally so that I could work through the grief that I was going through. Little did I know that that was going to be the apprenticeship for the grief that was yet to come when my late husband, Phil, was diagnosed with cancer 20 years ago. So nursing him to the end stage of his life. And then I went on to write books about grief and speak about grief. So I then went on to specialize in the area of grief. And a lot of my clients who come to me with a presenting issue, once we scrape the top of the surface off that presenting issue, I cannot tell you how many times what lies beneath is unresolved grief or deep pain. So I've worked in this space for 20 years. I know the importance of grieving well, of acceptance of our impending death, of supporting family so that they can cope after their loved one has gone. I know the importance of it. I've experienced it. I've worked with people. So naturally, I was drawn to want to go and visit the hospices. And Mercy, I've been there many times. Phil spent a couple of nights there himself in the earlier location. And it was literally by accident that I then started discovering what was going on out there and how desperate they were for funding and for help. So I've made it a mission to visit as many hospices as I can and hear from the ground what is really going on. And as a result of that, sorry, Simon, I talk a lot, but you know that.
No, it's good. You're a politician. Go for it.
And a Croatian one at that. Do talk. Excuse me. Then finding out the pediatric side of things and speaking with some of the amazing doctors out there who are in the pediatric space. It's broken my heart to hear some of the stories on what is going on out there. So, of course, I'm going to throw myself into this space and do what I can. Excuse me.
No, please. Well, I'll talk briefly so you can have a glass of water or a coffee. But I'm pleased you mentioned the pediatric side of things. I know there's a political element to this because there's a lot of discussion about it, but it's not particularly well funded in New Zealand. In fact, is it that one of the last specialists in pediatric palliative care is leaving? It sounds like a very, very challenging space, and I'm sure you're advocating strongly to the minister to do something.
Yes. No, I have. I did write a letter. Thankfully, those two positions in palliative care that were going to be disestablished haven't been disestablished. But also, I'm noticing there's a lot more media happening about pediatric palliative care. I've been up to visit them up at Starship Hospital. I'm in touch with another pediatric service. So I'm hearing exactly what they need, what their runway looks like. You know, some of them are saying, look, we're in code red now. So I will do what I can to raise awareness and know that I can't imagine what it would be like losing a child. I cannot imagine. But for the grace of God, go I, as they say. It could happen to anybody. So let's take care of our children. Let's take care of the parents who lose children, who lose their children in difficult circumstances, in the rural communities especially, where they don't have access. They are suffering. The family are suffering. This needs to stop.
Highlight something quite important for me, and again, it's probably useful if you are able just sort of expand a little bit on what the palliative care services, be it for children and families or in general, because I think a lot of people perceive palliative care as very much literally the last days and hours you're in a physical facility like Mercy or Waipuna down there in the Mount, and you're plugged into a whole lot of morphine. That's sort of, I think, the general perception of people. But palliative care is so much broader and wider than that, including it's not actually always in a hospital.
No. And, you know, one of the things they are wanting to do is to help people to remain at home in their final days. But palliative care starts well before just those few days. It starts a lot earlier. And it's about enabling people to live well, to live in the moment without kind of going, oh gosh, I've got a terminal diagnosis, I may as well just stop living now. It's about helping people to live every single day as well as they can. And for the young ones, for the little ones, it's about ensuring that the family are supported during that whole process and giving them what they need in order to help their young ones. It's also about the spiritual side of things, the emotional side of things, to help someone at the end stage of their life, no matter how many months it is, to live without fear is a huge gift. That was one of the things that I was so happy about with my late husband, was that he was able to come to a point of acceptance and not feel fear during his final weeks and months. And I think that would be a great gift to be able to give that to someone, to enable them to live every moment, like I say, without fear as they are in that final stage of their life. Did I stay on topic then, Simon?
You
I
did.
never
No,
know.
I'm just saying my father passed away recently, and my mother-in-law, and uh, they weren't strictly in palliative care per se, but again, it was just the support that is palliative in nature that was around them, including, you just say, that sort of emotional, spiritual side. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn around my father, but even though in his case a strong and deep faith, the initial few weeks, I suppose, was just the shock of what had happened, a stroke in his case, and an
Mm.
anger and a frustration. But again, the love and support, hopefully from family as well. But all that love and support that at the end, a man very much at peace. And I think for me, that's
Yes.
just illustrative of that care and what you're saying, how we approach grief, but also how we approach fear. And I suppose, again, that's just for people to understand from what you're sharing, Tanya, just that the breadth and depth of what palliative care does, and why, particularly in this end of life stage, we're often told about dignity. Actually, palliative care is one of the
Mm.
most important options that we have. It just makes such a fundamental difference to people's lives.
Yes, yes. Dying with dignity. Absolutely. No matter what you choose, right? To be able to, well, I feel that that was one of the greatest things that I wanted to give Phil and also my late parents, for them to be as dignified as possible during those final stages. We all deserve that. I call it a right. I personally say I feel it's a right. And that is what I will continue to advocate for.
So, how are you finding the reception to your bill at Parliament? You may need to explain to people it's a members' bill, so it hasn't been adopted by government. How's it been received so far, and how lucky are you feeling that it's going to get drawn out of the biscuit tin?
Well, you know me, Simon. I believe in divine intervention. Anything's possible. Um, I think there's about 70 bills in the tin, right? For me, I'm focusing on the outcome. The outcome for me is that somehow funding will be increased for the palliative care space, whether it be via a member's bill, whether it be me bringing this to the attention of so many people that one day the government will pick it up and say, hey, this is necessary. Uh, any means possible for this to happen, I'm open to. The outcome is always the thing that I want to see happen. So, yes, it is a bit of the luck of the draw, but that's why I keep visiting hospices. That's why I'm open on social media about what I'm doing. To not support this bill, I can't imagine anyone not supporting this bill. And I often get asked the question, oh, yes, but Tanya, what's it going to cost the government if we do fund them to, let's say, 90%, 95%? Well, my question is, what's it going to cost us as a community if we don't do this? What's going to happen if some of the hospices have to close their doors? The volunteers say, no, we can't do this. We've got an ageing population. We're going to have a far greater need for palliative care in the years to come. We need to prepare for it now. There is a cost in not taking action now. I'm not one of these people that waits until the last minute to fix a problem. I like to anticipate the problem, find a way to fix it, and start on it now.
And there is, as you know better than I do, there is a problem. I mean, the hospices, again, amazing. The palliative care teams, amazing, but they are
Mm.
struggling by and large, and there's much greater need for their services and what they can provide. And for what my view is worth, things always cost money. I mean, you're in government, you know that every day you're making decisions which cost millions, if not billions, of dollars, and it's just about sometimes making what appears a tough call, but in the palliative space, I just like what you're saying, that it's worthwhile as well, my word here, an investment, because you touched at the start on grief, and I've seen far too many families in my life and work who are still grieving and a deep hurt in the way that their loved one left this world. And more often than not, good palliative care not only assists the dying, but the family. I think there's a tremendous cost socially, emotionally, spiritually, possibly even financially, in families that don't receive that support and care. So, I mean, gosh, says me, here's my pitch to the government is, find the money. It's a great investment for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Mental health is, as we know, a big issue. And as I said earlier in our interview, once we scrape the top of the problem that people present with, underneath is often unresolved grief, which manifests in addictions, alcohol, drugs, gambling, you name it. That costs the family, the person, of course, the family. It's a huge financial cost if you've got a gambling issue. There are costs to the community and to the family if these issues aren't resolved. And so I am a huge advocate for doing everything to help a family during the grieving process, afterwards as well. When my late husband died, I had an open casket at home for 3 days. The house was full of people for 3 days, passing through, paying their respects, grieving. And I kid you not, it not only helped me, but it helped so many people in that grieving process. But I suppose I don't mind talking about grief and dying, you see, and that's why I'm encouraging others to be okay with it. I know it's painful, but it's better to pass through the pain than to bottle it down.
Oh, look, I'm 100% with you. I think for different reasons, I'm very comfortable around death and dying. I mean, I don't particularly want it right now. I wouldn't mind a few more years, thanks very much. But actually, in terms of talking with people, talking about it, and as I mentioned earlier, with two close loved ones dying recently, it was really important, those moments of farewell, actually, both at the hospital and the funeral home and so forth, as uncomfortable as it was for some in the family, it said moving through it, that process of moving through it was actually really quite transformative. And so I don't know, is there an element that you see, it's probably more of a philosophical question, Tanya, do you sort of feel in, New Zealand society or even wider Western society, there's a fear of an avoidance of the topic of death, and is that somewhat contributing to the fact that we don't talk as much about palliative care, that we don't prioritise it as much as we should? Is that something you've observed?
100%. I mean, I can honestly say it took me quite a few months to use the D word to say that Phil died. It really did. And the first time I said it, I just burst into tears. We soften it a little bit by saying so-and-so passed away and all that sort of thing. So most definitely it is a topic that we don't want to face. We'd rather put our head in the sand than to accept that actually one day we are all going to face our final moments, and it's nothing to fear. If anything, knowing that we are all going to face our final moments should be something that would encourage us to live every day with passion right now and not waste one moment of our lives.
It's actually a slight tangent, but friends of mine who are big into social media and who spend hours and hours arguing and raging on Twitter or on Facebook, often say to them, in your final moments, is your regret in life going to be that you didn't spend more time arguing politics with random strangers? And of course, the answer is no. There's so much more to life. Hey, just quickly, because I'm conscious of your time, I mean, what are some of the core messages coming out of the hospices themselves? I assume a lot of it is around obviously wanting more support and funding, but are there other sort of themes or ideas that they're sharing with you that you would like to share with us?
They're so grateful that I'm raising awareness. That's the thing. And they say the same, that people don't want to talk about death and dying. So that's why it's a topic that we can easily go like that too. We all think that we want the easiest, softest way with everything in life, right? Even in death, so that they don't want to talk about it. The palliative care space, that is something that I'm getting a lot of feedback on, and the desperate need for assistance there. The hospices are doing everything they can to help people to remain at home. So here's what a lot of people think, that a hospice is where you go and spend your final few days and it's not very pleasant. But that's not what hospice are doing all the time. They help you remain at home with your family, and it's no matter where you live, to be able to spend your final weeks, days at home with family surrounded. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen on what hospice actually do.
Which is why I think the advocacy that you're leading is just so vitally important. And I was thrilled, actually. I don't always have a lot of time for mainstream media, I must admit. But I was thrilled to see that you were on Q&A. Was that with Jack Tame, I think was host, but they obviously profiled you and what you were doing. So you're clearly getting some traction here through your work in advocacy.
Which is great, and that's my whole point. If I suppose the more we can talk about something, the more people will start noticing. So it's up to us, the people, to all rise up and speak what's in our hearts. So often we don't. We just push ourselves down. We don't speak up. It's time to speak up. So that's what I'm encouraging everyone to do, and I'm happy to beat the drum and lead the way on this one if I have to.
Well, Tanya, this is why I'm thrilled you're in Parliament. It's about people with passion who are prepared to stand up. And look, this is only a general reflection, and no disrespect to some of my now former colleagues, but there are some who go into Parliament and I've never been quite sure what they stand for. They don't speak out much at all. So I am always thrilled when I come across MPs that are, like yourself, not only passionate about causes, but actually pursuing them, advocating for them. I mean, what's the best way for people to help support you? Is it write to their local MP to say, hey, support Tanya's bill? What can people listening do to help you?
Well, yes, anything to raise awareness of the bill, anything to raise awareness about what hospices in your own community are needing. So maybe just reach out to your own hospice and say, how can I best support you? But also let, like you say, your own MP know that this is an area that you want them to speak up for as well.
Well, a great encouragement there. Tanya, look, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for picking up that bill and running with it. And can I just say from a personal side, thank you for just the way that you speak into this space. It gives, I have to say, me and I know many others, great encouragement. So thanks for all you do, and we'll let you get back to your, as you mentioned at the start, your vocation, which is now going to involve hours more in that Parliament. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for all that you do.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you also for all that you do.